I got 5th, then 8th, then 8th, and then I said enough is enough. I'm climbing to diamond right now. But more on that in a second. Are you looking to rank up at the end of 7.5 or into set 8? Well, then you came to the right place. I am so unbelievably hyped right now. I just finished ranking up to diamond. I haven't been playing this season for very long. As you probably saw in the thumbnail, it's only 14 or 15 days since I started playing, and I am now diamond, which is awesome. Maybe I'm even going to go for master this season, but in this video, I'm going to tell you all about the comp that I used to get there most recently, what my tips are to succeed and actually rank up, whether it's from iron to bronze, bronze to silver, any rank basically. And my biggest tip for you is coming right now. Stop trying to do every single thing perfect. This game is a perfect example of how I absolutely nailed down the mechanics of the game, and I still don't make the most optimal decision in every point. And unlike some other videos, I'm actually going to point out where I think that I could have done better, because I think that's important to know that if you're overwhelmed with all these tips trying to learn, you don't have to do them all perfectly. Of course, as you get higher elo, these little details matter more and more and more, but as you're climbing, don't worry about doing every single thing perfectly, because you're going to be doing so many things at once, you're going to miss the point of the round at hand, and then you're going to end up losing, and you're not going to get anywhere. But let's jump right into the gameplay. As you can see, I did start Giant's Belt. I figured that I was going to be using this build, Graves and Seraphine, and so you need a lot of Giant's Belts. You can also start with the sword or with the large rod, but I figured the belt was going to be the better choice, and they didn't even have any large rods in the carousel. Then I lucked out and I got a BS sword right away, which is amazing. You can also see that I got a Seraphine in the PvE round, which is absolutely perfect. Then this augment, I actually had played a Graves Death Defiance before, so I was actually going to choose the uplink, but Death Defiance is absolutely broken, and you're going to see exactly why way later in this video. Of course, it was a risk because I could have got anything, but I figured because you don't build very many tank items, worst case scenario, if I don't get this Defiance, I will just pick a tank item, and then that will probably be one of my only tank items that I actually build at all in this game. So throw the Death Defiance on set, as it is a 2-star unit, and I figured this is going to carry me through the PvE round. So just a bit of backstory. When I was playing last night, I got 5th, 8th, and 8th, and I wasn't following any of my own advice that I'm going to give to you right now. And so I actually decided to slow it down today, figure out where I was going wrong, which I already knew, and then I decided that I was going to follow exactly what I said I was going to do and finally get to diamond. Sure enough, I went 5 games in a row in the top 4. I won a game, I got top 2 a couple times, and now in this game, I finally secure. All I needed in this game actually was to get in the top 4 because I was at 90 LP in Plat 1. So I figured the stakes were high. If I ended up getting 7th or 8th, that was going to be so annoying. So I decided I'm going to focus, and I just decided, here we go, let's get this done. So even though the early PvE rounds and the first couple rounds do kind of seem a little boring, a little slow, everybody wants to get to the action where you're having 7 units just mashing each other, but the beginning of the game is actually really important to set yourself up for success. In those 2 games that I went 8th, I was doing stupid things like I wanted to start Lagoon because that's my comfort. I re-rolled twice and didn't get a Lagoon, and like things like that, just of course I was gonna get 8th. I wasted 4 gold. I didn't hit 10 gold for the longest time, and that is one of the most important things, is your econ, and the beginning of the game is the time to set it up. You need to get to 10 gold as soon as possible. Unless you have the perfect units that you absolutely cannot justify selling, you should not be holding on to any units that are not part of your core build. And even if they are, you can probably get them later. When I was playing Dragonmancer reroll, I would always get Lee Sins and Volley Bears really early and immediately sell them because I just wanted to get to 50 gold as fast as possible. I could re-roll for that Lee Sin way later, so don't get trapped into holding on to those really nice, juicy units that you're gonna need to round out your build eventually, because it's probably something that you are going to come across later, and by that time you will have the gold to spend it. So that's where we're at. So I lost the first round of the PvE, which is absolutely fine. I figured that I was probably going to lose streak, but then I won the next round. So here we are, present time in the third round, and this one, yeah, I figured I'm going to win. So now I am committing to trying to win as much as I can. I prefer with the Graves Seraphine comp to win streak way more than lose streak, because you need to hit 6, 7, 8 as fast as humanly possible. So it doesn't really make sense to lose streak because, yeah, it's just, if you have the most terrible start, for sure, but I'm not a huge fan of lost streaking in general unless I'm playing a reroll build, because otherwise I just feel like win streaking is the better way to go. However, the problem with win streaking is sometimes you do not have a strong enough build to actually keep your win streak, and then you get into a limbo where you're winning 1, losing 1, winning 2, losing 2, and then that way you are not building any sort of streak, and then especially if you don't get a lot of econ and units from the PvE round, you could really be setting yourself up for problems once you hit the third stage of the game, because you want to be hitting that 30, 40, 50 gold as soon as possible. So anyways, got another giant spell. I figure I'm probably going to need at least 3. So let's start getting things going here. I also want to try to start stacking the Lagoon trait, mostly just for the econ, but I know that I'm probably with this build going to hang on to the Lagoon trait all game. As you get later into the game, it does benefit you a lot to get those components, the magnetic removers. It gives you a lot of flexibility. So I've always been a fan of the Lagoon, and I would never keep it if it's going to ruin my actual Graves Seraphine build. But if you can swing it, it's a great add-on to have, especially as you get into the late game where those item advantages and you know, a reforger to get the item you need, that it becomes way more important as you get down the line. So now you see I'm about to hit 20 gold. I'm on a 3-win streak. I also am getting some units that I really need, so decided here, let's put the Senna in. Gonna get the Rage Wing trait going, and yeah, I'm feeling really good at this point. Actually, one of the people in this game was actually my last game. We both got out on the same round. We both were at -7 health, and the system gave me the 4th place versus him, and then he has a really tough game this time, so I feel pretty sad for him, but also I don't really care because I'll probably never play against him again. And then I was just concerned about getting to diamond. So yeah, like I was saying, econ is really, really, really important to focus on. If that is the one takeaway you have from this video, it is nail down the econ of the game, because the money does give you choices. And I used to think that it wasn't as important as it is, but now I realize that it is everything. That doesn't mean you should pick every single econ augment, because sometimes you don't actually need it, and if your build falls off late game, maybe you need that damage, or if you need to survive burst and you need healing from your carries, sometimes you have to supplement your build with that. So just be really cognizant that, you know, econ doesn't mean pick every single econ option that you can. So here's another tip, and this will be applicable to other sets as well. As you can see, I swapped out my units for the PvE round. Not only did I want to put more Lagoon units on to cast more to start building up the stacks for the Tidal Blessing, I also really, really, really wanted to put the weakest possible and the fastest casting units, other than I didn't put in Zac because I didn't want to risk losing the PvE round, which I'm sure I wouldn't, but yeah, I wanted to get the slowest clear possible so you can get the most stacks as possible. It might only be 1 or 2 more casts, but it does make a difference. The faster you stack up to 100, 150 of these Tidal Blessing, the more it will make a difference, and it really starts to snowball your game. So again, ideally with this build, you are going to continue your win streak if at all possible. As soon as I see this matchup, I'm pretty confident that I'm going to win this round, which is awesome. I didn't do a ton of scouting early because, again, in these last couple games, I just was really focused on what I was doing, and it is always good to scout, and as soon as you do get up into higher elo, it is pretty important to scout, maybe not every single round, but on a regular basis, especially to check augments and all that stuff. So we're heading into the second augment choice, and I get so jacked up because I see scoped weapons, and I love that augment for this build. You want to start your Graves in the back row, and the first couple times I played, I didn't realize why you want to start Graves in the back row, but he jumps around so much that if you start him in the back, the first Seraphine cast of her ability, especially when she gets Morello's, it will 9 times out of 10 hit Graves in it because he won't be far enough away yet. Sometimes I would start him right beside Seraphine. That lasted 1 game, and then I learned really quick, and he kept getting out of her range before she casted so that he wasn't applying her buff, and that's what makes this build so effective, is he's, scooting to the back line and he's applying the debuff to everybody and doing massive damage. So it's really important to, play the positioning properly with this team. So scoped weapons is great because Graves is going to start at the back. He's going to get that extra attack speed and range, and it's just a perfect augment for this build. As you can see, I also did lose my win streak, which sucks, but honestly, as soon as you're above 40 gold, you can stop obsessing about your win streak. Ideally, you're going to get over 50 gold, but once you're almost at that 50 gold, then you can really shift your thinking into what am I going to do to move my build forward, my game forward, and now start saving HP at any cost. Of course, if you can still pull off a win streak again down the line and you just lost that one random round, do it. But at this point, unless for some reason you think you need like 300 gold, you don't need to do a loss streak, because now you just want to get into saving HP mode. And that's the mistake some people make, is they want to keep econing, and so they do start a loss streak at this point of the game, but then they never really recover from it. It doesn't really make sense, but I can see how it happens. But now we are at the point where we're 2-starring some of our units. At this point, I truly am feeling like really confident, because I know that this build, the beginning of the game, can sometimes be the trickiest, especially if you're not hitting 2-star units in the build. But because I have units that easily transition, I'm not as worried. You see, I did go below 50 gold, which, okay, that's the first mistake I'm going to point out. Sometimes you just get trigger happy with the reroll button, and you just decide to reroll, and for some reason, even though I do know better and I know how to be patient, sometimes you just can't help but do it. And it's not the end of the world, but try not to do that. You know what I actually do, and you're going to see this in the rest of the video, is when I get above 50 gold, but I know that I need to level, I actually use all my gold above 50 to level up, so it forces me not to reroll. And I know some people just have more self-control, but I don't, and maybe you don't either. So that's one of my tips, is do things to make it so that you don't waste a bunch of gold just kind of rerolling for one random unit. As you can see here, there is no rods, and I really want to finish my Morellos on Seraphine. It's actually starting to really bother me that I've not done it yet, because I have played games where I just never get an AP item, and it feels so frustrating, especially because this build does require it. I did learn in this game, because it does take a while for me to hit that Seraphine 2-star and the Morellos, and I do okay without it, but you can see at the point where I do get the Morellos, it really starts ascending the build. Here I start to slam a ZZ Rot, because I do know that this build is great to have a ZZ Rot, especially because you're not building a lot of tank items, you hardly have a front line, and this is the kind of one item that kind of helps you out, because everyone's kind of a squishy carry, more or less, except for a few units. So the ZZ Rot will taunt everyone so that, you know, your Graves can dash around, hopefully killing people before they kill the ZZ Rot. So that's kind of my tip there. Get destroyed by this Yone. This is a spoiler, but this Yone becomes very, very annoying in this game, and I am already starting to see the Yone as a threat. I'm thinking in the back of my mind, maybe I do need to have a Bramble Vest. I did just see in this patch 12.21 that Swiss Shot Yone is one of the new kind of OP considered builds. So that's going to be my next tip for you, actually. Be aware of those flavor of the month builds and what is in the meta. You don't need to know everything. Like, for example, all these dragon builds, like I said in my last video, I do not like 2 space units. I don't really like doing builds that involve dragons. I've done a couple, but I've lost a few games because I refuse to do the 3, 4, 5 dragon build because I just don't like it, and I just, that's okay to not like and want to play every build. So that's exactly, be aware of builds, but you don't have to know how to do every single build perfectly. Again, if you are getting into the higher elos, sometimes you have to flex because the most popular comps are really, really contested, and sometimes you only have one option, and if you don't take that option, you are headed for 8th place, unfortunately. But even at this point, I've gotten by with just a few builds, and up until probably, I'm going to assume mid-diamond, you're probably okay as long as you know a couple builds and that you feel confident in them. So here we go. We are at Wolves now. I'm really hoping for my Morellos at this point. Again, swapping out my units so I can continue to build these Lagoon stacks in future sets, even though if the Lagoon mechanic isn't there or there is a similar stacking mechanic, just make sure to apply this tip always to maximize your PvE rounds, because they're the free rounds essentially, and it's really important to get as much as you can out of them, because you can't control how the play rounds are going to go all the time. So extremely annoying. I still don't have my Morellos, and I build Morellos in a lot of the games. When I went Master, I got my stats report, and that was in set 6, and I built Morellos in like 88% of games or something. It did work with a lot of units in that set, but it's an item that I really, really enjoy. So here's, I wouldn't say it's mistake number 2, but I do re-roll my bow because it's not an essential component. Yes, you can build some things like Last Whisper for Graves and stuff, but I decide I'm just going to use my Reforger, especially because I will likely get another one or maybe even 2 in this game, and I just know that from playing so many Lagoons. But I should not have wasted it at that point. I should just wait to see what happens in the future rounds. And again, that's okay. You do not have to be perfect in every single game you play. And I knew that I was doing well enough that it was kind of a risk and reward thing. And that is kind of the name of the game. So here we are, we're at our last augment choice, and I decide to re-roll the augments. I wasn't a huge fan of them, so I go through the hunt because I find that the battles, even late game, do go pretty quickly. They're not these long drawn out battles because you don't have a front line. It's all about let's get it going. So I figure if I have Thrill the Hunt, I can do some healing late game that will keep my Graves healthy. And you do see that play out a little bit later, that it actually does really work out that way. So here you can kind of see me wondering, should I sell the Senna to put the Graves in? And the answer is yes. Graves is just so broken, especially with Death's Defiance. I figured that he would do more work than the Senna, even though Senna is an unreal 1-cost unit. So you can see in this battle here, I have my Graves, my Seraphine, and the Graves is already putting in some work, and the Zyra's also doing some work. I do not like Zyra's ability. I played a lot of Syndicate in set 6, and she had the same ability. and I hate that it always misses. Late game, it definitely is good, but early game, the units always move up one step away from it, and it just drives me crazy. So there you see, putting in Graves was the right decision. Sometimes you don't want to sacrifice a 2-star unit for a 1 cost, so you really do have to carefully decide that, and it does vary game to game and carry to carry, but in some cases it is better to get that carry on. I knew I was going to get the Cannoneer trait with Graves, which we did have with Senna as well, but I kind of figured it was going to be okay. If you're putting a 4-cost unit into no synergy traits, that's where I think that you might not want to do that. And again, these decisions, you just got to play to learn, what works, what doesn't. But, I said econ is really important. And the other thing that's really important while you're climbing is, learning some builds and being consistent. Once you start playing these builds over and over, you kind of realize what works, what doesn't, what is optimal, what isn't. And that's where you can really start to focus on the other aspects of the game, because you're confident with the build path, what units to swap out for, what starters to go. And when you're learning builds, I do actually recommend playing normals, even so sometimes it doesn't feel like as high of stakes. Play some normal games, at least 3 games with a new build, just so that you get that base comfort level, and I guarantee you will increase your climb rate, because you won't be wasting a few games getting 5th, 8th, 7th. You can go right to 5th, 3rd, 6th, 2nd, 1st, because you already have the little bit of that learning curve. Okay, so again, we have no rod. This is becoming so annoying. Where is my Morellos? Like, I want it right this moment. That's okay, I picked up the chain vest. I kind of figured I actually might end up needing a Sunfire cape, because I am noticing in some of the other battles, some of the units are starting to get tanky. There's the one Leona that has 2 redemptions, so I kind of am thinking, maybe that'll be my tank item. I put Jason, so the last game, and I might end up posting this game too because it was so fun, I had the Graves Seraphine build, but I ended up getting 2 Lagoon augments, and one I wanted the Zeri and the Shojin, and so I picked the Lagoon, and then I only ended up getting the Lagoon trait in the second round as well, and so I ended up playing Lagoon Jace with Graves and Seraphine, and he ended up being full AP. It was so fun, so I kind of just wanted to throw Jace in again this time, just because I had actually never used Jace before that game. Again, I've only been playing for the last couple weeks, so I haven't played a lot of the units. I've only played against them, and now I have a feeling I am going to do a build around Jace, just because he is a fun carry. I can see why he's a popular carry. Alright, so grab another Seraphine. If you're level 7, that is the prime time to reroll for your 3-star, 3-cost units. I'm not going to go into all the specifics of rerolling and leveling, because that should be its whole other guide, but now that augments, they have them in pretty good spots. That, just my kind of general tip on that is learn when the augments are. That's around the time that you're leveling up. It is different when you're re-rolling, but again, I'll probably have to make a guide on that. I'll probably do that at the beginning of set 8, just because then it'll be fresh with the mechanics, and who knows what changes they will have to augments if they're going to swap the rounds, so we'll just wait on that. But again, it's just kind of a base guide. Here's that Yone again. As I mentioned, he's becoming very annoying. I thought even my Graves was going to be able to do it, but no, there's no way. The Twitch and the Yone, they're just way too strong at this point, and it's looking like a very tough comp to beat at this point. However, I do know that I have some good late game strength once I get the 2-star Graves. So here I decide that I am going to reroll until I get the Morellos. I just know that I do need that for this build, and I'm going to do pretty much whatever I need to do, which again is risky. It's the Treasure Dragon, but usually I stop really early on the Treasure Dragon. Side note, I hope that comes back for the next season, but I don't think it will based on the promo. But usually I take it right away. So here is where I see it. Death's Defiance. I know that I'm going to take this because it has Morello, and the Death's Defiance is so strong on Graves that I also know it's going to be very strong on Pantheon. Usually you want to build really tanky on Pantheon, but Death's Defiance is as good as building a tank item. So now I have 2 Death's Defiance, and it's really good against burst comps, mages, dragons, who dragons are basically tanks, mages, and burst all in one. So I get my second Banner of Command as well. So at this point, I'm feeling like I'm for sure going to get Diamond at this point. There's already somebody that got 8. There's a pretty big gap between the top couple spots and the bottom couple spots in terms of where their builds are. So yeah, I'm feeling like it's probably on lock. However, I thought that the game before, and I didn't end up getting 4th, but I thought I was going to be in the top 2 for sure. And sometimes people hit their builds, and then that sucks for you because you fall off and there's nothing you can do about it. And that's kind of my next tip that I want to say is, don't get frustrated with a build that is good because you had one game where you did bad. Sometimes people just hit the perfect synergies, they hit the perfect items, and that's okay. That is part of the game. This game has become way less RNG heavy, which is great because I definitely don't love, like in season 1 it was so RNG heavy that the first round somebody could have 5 components and you could have 1, and then there was no gold to compensate. Like, that's not fun. There's a lot more skill expression, and that's why I'm really starting to enjoy TFT as a whole. Alright, so now we are fighting the dragons, which normally would annoy me, but I'm kind of thinking, oh, I think I might win this round, until, well, for a hot second I was like, oh no, I think I'm going to lose, but then I didn't die with the burst, which is the exact reason that Death Defiance is such a good item. I hope that it makes a comeback into the next season, because sometimes that rapid fire burst, like you can see from Aoshin or even Aurelian Soul in this set, it just feels like there's nothing you can do about it. Death Defiance is the answer to that. So if you are playing games in the next couple weeks before this set ends, dragons are going to be strong to the end of the season because they know that this is the theme of the set, so whatever. But you definitely build Death Defiance if you get that augment and you hit that item. It is a game changer, especially with the Graves Seraphine build, which I'm assuming you're here to learn about anyways. So just, I guess going back to the start of the game, because I'm sure you're probably wondering where the early game, where you pivot from. And again, I did mention that you can start Lagoon. Getting Bruisers and Guardians online is always a good idea, but really, any of the units that you need for this build do come a little bit later. So you can hit an early Zyra, you can hit an early Zac, and that's all well and fine, but I would say getting the early Cannoneers, Lagoon, just units that you can 2-star really, to get you your econ to 50 gold so you can start leveling up. That is the most important part. And I know it sucks to not have like a definitive plan, because that's what we all want, but the reality is you do have to be a little bit flexible. That's one thing that challenged me about this game, and I appreciate at the same time. So you can see here, I didn't go for the Infinity Edge, and I didn't go for the Banshee's Veil. I went with this Quicksilver Sash, or whatever it's called in this set. I went with that item in my previous game, and I really liked it because, again, with these dragons, they have so much chain CC and burst that I figured if Graves can just still dash around, I think that he could possibly do some work. And so that's just, I guess, another tip I have is, some of these items seem like useless or not exciting, but sometimes they literally make the difference, and you are going to see that right away. So pay attention to things like, no CC. That actually does make a huge difference. All right, here is another, I guess, mistake just to point out, because, again, I'm not doing everything absolutely perfect. You should probably not roll between 10 or 20 gold. I did want to hit my 3-star Seraphine, but you should probably keep 10 or 20 gold so you keep that interest going, because it will allow you to reroll more, especially because I'm not in any danger of losing in the next few rounds. Also, this is the point where I know I've secured diamond. It was kind of funny that it was me that ended up taking out that other player. It was very poetic, and now I'm feeling really good. But again, because I'm feeling so good about my build, oh, this is so pain. I have 1 gold. Sometimes what I'll actually do if it's dire straits is, let's say a 1-star Zeri or Zyra came up, and I could sell them to get my 3-star Seraphine and then buy a 1-star replacement. Sometimes you can get away with doing that because the 3-star power is just so strong. But again, I'm in no danger of losing this round, so I figure I can just wait and see what happens. So as I don't know if you can read in the chat, but the person that's in first place is like kind of worried about the dragon build. I faced them next, and I had just beat them the previous round, so I figured I'm probably going to win again, because now I have my 2-star Graves, and as you can see, I just absolutely dominate. So now we're at the top 3. Feeling very good about this. So now in the end game, this is where all those little decisions that you make become more and more important. Positioning, like, I'm pretty lazy with my positioning. Most people, like, if you watch streams where they're like grandmaster, they're flipping their units around every single round, because if somebody has a Zephyr or somebody has an ability that's going to target that unit, they want to like play those mind games or kind of make sure that they fake people out, and that's great. But to me, it's just too exhausting. As I get closer to master, I have to start doing them, because you're going to start seeing that you're not getting into the top 4 by not doing these. But truly, you can see my positioning has been pretty constant. With this build, you do need to keep it pretty constant because of the Seraphine buff, but with other comps, you know, you do want to move things around a little bit. But if you are, you know, especially below diamond, sometimes I don't change my positioning until the top 3, and maybe I could have saved some HP here and there, but unless there's a, you know, really strong comp that I know that by changing the positioning I'm gonna clinch it, or I have the Zephyr augment so I know who I'm fighting next, you just don't have to, like, there's so many more important things to focus on. Like, I didn't change my build around a lot, and I'm in the top 3, and I'm doing like unreal. So it's, you got to pick what you focus on, because you don't have that much time in between 2 rounds. If you're trying to reroll, if you're trying to buy, if you're trying to swap positions, if you're trying to make items, if you're trying to see who you're fighting next, if you're scouting, all these things take up time, and you don't have the most time in the world. So just focus on like what is the most important thing to get through the round, and then that's kind of, you know, that's kind of my advice to you as somebody that is trying to rank up and trying to climb. So if you're still here with me at this point, thank you so much for watching. I hope you found this informative. I am going to be making some guides coming up that are, you know, more actually specific guides, because I know we're kind of doing gameplay and guides right now, but I was just so excited and I wanted to share my knowledge. And if you kind of enjoy watching games, sometimes it's nice to get some tips and kind of point out mistakes while you're watching as well, because sometimes it's easy just to watch and enjoy, but by me pointing out like the problems too, then it kind of, you know, can jog your memory when you're in game, like, oh yeah, that player did that and they shouldn't have, like, I'm not going to do that. So so here you can see I do switch my positioning. I know that I am needing to change something up to try to beat this Yone, and so I decide if I kind of move everybody away from the Yone, maybe I can have my units smash the other side of their map, and then I'll have more units to focus on Yone at the end. Sure enough, as you can see, it works, and I beat this player This is also why Death Defiance works. The Graves held out for so long, tanking that damage, that it allowed Seraphine to cast again, Zeri to cast again, and with the Morellos, it just made that difference, that burn damage. So I'm finally, I only took that Hecarim, by the way, because I wanted just some more CC. I knew as soon as I hit Bard to give me 3 Mystics, even though that, you know, this other player does not have that much magic damage, I still felt like, well, Bard's just a amazing 5-cost unit, and he provides CC and more synergy. So the Hecarim I can get rid of now. I also make a joke that I think this video is going on YouTube, so let's play to the end. He was kind of saying like, oh yeah, I think that, you know, your build is gonna win, or that's kind of the vibe I was getting. So I was like, don't surrender, I just want to see what happens. And I did want to see, like, can I, with this new positioning, play, or now is he going to adapt to it and then I'm going to lose? So you can see I smash once again, and I'm so stoked now that we're going into the last carousel, hoping to get one more item for Seraphine. I really didn't itemize her, which in all of the builds that you read, it says prioritize your Seraphine. You should be building your items for her first, and I did not do that this game, even though I do think that's a good strategy. But with Morellos being done, not hitting other AP items, I just kind of figured, well, I'm hitting my AD items, so I can make Bruiser Pantheon and this Graves, and that's enough. So I ended up picking up a ZZ Rot because, again, I want to taunt that Yone for as long as possible to allow my units to get over there. One thing that I think that I could have done a little bit better here is swap the Pantheon and the Graves, so the Graves would go down the right side of the map. And here's actually where I think I make a mistake, and this is why it's really hard to know with, you know, without just playing a bunch and seeing how rounds play out. So here I kind of remember, oh yeah, I have scope weapons. I could be getting 3 more units into the back 2 rows, and then I'll have more attack range, more attack speed. Seraphine can cast more. That must be the more optimal way to go. So even though I just won this round, I think, okay, he might hit some more units. I'm going to switch things up again, and I'll probably dominate even harder. Because, you know, you do want to play around your augments, and that is kind of, you know, the expected outcome. However, you're going to see why that is not always the case. Because this player also has scoped weapons, his units can attack from further away, and because my comp kind of thrives on getting right up into them, and the recon, you know, disarming everybody, being further away almost actually loses me. Well, it does lose me this round, spoiler alert, but you know, if I just wasn't cognizant of that, I think I just threw away the game. But in theory, I think I was making a good choice, but it just didn't pan out in reality. And again, when you have little HP and you're kind of just trying something on a hope and a whim, you don't really know if you're making the right decision. So luckily I had enough HP that I could kind of try it out a few rounds and see what happens. But they're just absolutely swift-shotting me to death, and luckily I survived. We're gonna get one more PvE round. I see a death cap, which there couldn't be a better item at this point. I feel like maybe the Archangel Staff, because if the fight goes a little longer, that ends up being better, but I'm pretty happy with this. Okay, so we are getting to the end of the video. Thank you so much. If you enjoy this content, if you've learned anything useful, please like and subscribe. I'm definitely going to be posting more TFT content, and I can't wait for the new set to come out. I'm really going to lean into it because some of my favorite classes and traits are coming back, and just overall I think it's going to be an awesome set. The future of TFT is looking really bright. I said it in my last video that the team is so innovative and so they care so much about the game that it really shows that they are willing to do anything to innovate, make the game better, listen to feedback. So I'm really excited for set 8 and beyond. We're going back here. You can see that this player kind of switched up their positioning a little bit as well. I hit level 9. I think they did hit another 3-star and maybe a 2-star Zai, or maybe they might have already had 2-star. But I figure at this point, hopefully I'm going to win this round again. And yeah, it's looking like I'm absolutely dominating still. Okay, here is where I'm so annoyed. I did not realize that I hit my 250 stacks for Lagoon, and I didn't notice the glow because I was trying to reroll for a 2-star Bard, or I thought maybe I was going to hit this Soraka, so I didn't even realize, and I even moved the Zac. Like, I can't believe, but at 2 seconds I noticed, and I tried to run with my little legend to go get it, and I missed it, and I was like, you know what? That was going to be the full item that secured me the win. And you know, again, not perfect. I mean, I can't complain because no matter what, I was top 2, but I felt like, you know, those woulda, coulda, shouldas. Here I'm thinking that I'm still doing pretty good, and Graves is still full health, Pantheon's still full health, but then Yone just absolutely trashes me. So I got second place, but it was a really fun game. Thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned for more. Have a great day.